boy, what a difference a week and a half can make. Welcome guys to another On the Farm. It's your boy John, of course. It's a little cold down here. It is currently about I'll be generous and say 10 degrees, somewhere in there. We just got down here to the farm, and well, this is the asparagus we cut down last week. It's a little snowy now. So it's the Wednesday before New Year's, and this video comes out New Year's Eve, so I hope you guys have a great one. Be safe, don't be stupid. Since it is so cold down here, we will not be accomplishing any outdoor projects today. We're going to be trapped in the shop. We've got a couple little things we're going to tweak with, and hey, let's get into it, see what we're into here today, and yeah, let's do it.
What is up, you guys? John, the voiceover guy here from Puma Plow. Welcome back. Appreciate you guys clicking on another On the Farm. I know I already said that kind of stuff when I was actually talking at the farm, but this is voiceover mode. Basically, I can't use the audio from the shed this time of year because it is kind of loud in there with our heaters running. We had 2 heaters running at this particular time because, as you saw in the start of the video, it was cold. And actually, if we go down to the farm New Year's Eve, which is the day this video comes out, so Happy New Year, like I said already before, but if we go to the farm New Year's Eve, it's going to be even colder when we get to the farm than it was this day. This cold snap, and I know like pretty much most of you guys are experiencing the same thing, but it is like brutal. It is just brutal right now across the United States and of course Canada, but Canada's always cold, so you know, it's the thing. Basically, guys, we are working on this FS90. This is a STIHL fs90. This particular one is a donor machine, basically. I'm really not even sure what was wrong with it. Maybe the cylinder was worn out. I'm not totally sure. Dad got this in. Dad sells steel trimmers, by the way. But Dad got this in. A local cemetery owned it. And they burn trimmers up because they trim a lot, obviously, at a cemetery. So there's that. Basically, we have an FS90 at the farm. We don't use it a lot, but we do use it occasionally. And Dad bought it off a guy years ago, so it's got some age to it. And it's having carburetor problems and ignition module problems. So, because we happen to have a donor machine, or Dad was able to get a donor machine, we're going to rob the carburetor and the ignition module off. Now, I will flat out say I didn't do the best job of filming this because A, head mount GoPro, B, the voice activation thing struck again. So I think I'm going to turn that off here soon. I just need to flat turn the voice activation off and reach up and click the button when I want it to record and click the button when I want it to stop recording, kind of thing. So yeah, this is my first time and Dad's first time working on an FS90. Like I said, we've had an FS90 at the farm for a few years and really have not had to do anything to it. So there's that. And like I said, first time working on it. So a little bit of figuring out what to do and how to get to it and all that fun stuff like that. But like I said, this is a donor machine. It doesn't actually run. I'm thinking cylinder was worn out. Dad will correct me after he watches this video. But obviously, if we took the ignition module off and the carburetor off to use, that leads me to believe that those were both good. That this trimmer had other problems. So there's that. And for some reason, I don't know why, but the guy that's in charge of the cemetery does not like to get back the quote donor machines and use them, because there's a lot of good parts on this machine still. But for some reason, he does not want them back to use as donor machines. So that's why Dad ended up with it. If we didn't use this trimmer, it was literally going to get scrapped out and recycled. So we might as well pull parts of it off of it because we have one of the same machines, basically. The one from the cemetery, we believe, is a newer machine, a newer model. Model year, I should say. It's the same thing, FS90, but just a newer, newer year. We're not actually sure what year either one was from as of filming this. We could do some research and figure it out, but we did not. So what I'm doing here, which, by the way, blue gloves for the win. I know that annoys some of you greatly. But anyway, blue gloves for the win. I am taking the airbox off of the donor machine here. And I don't know why, but it's kind of weird. I keep calling it a donor machine. But that's exactly what it is. It is a donor machine. So there is that. But taking the air box off so we can get to the carburetor. It's a little weak. It is a little wee carburetor. Man, words are hard. Words are hard. It's a small carburetor. Of course, it's not a big engine, so you don't need a big carburetor, right? Yeah, so we could buy a new carburetor, and we might have to, because we're not totally sure if this carburetor is 100% good to go or not. These carburetors are not too expensive on this stuff. But we figured, hey, we have the donor machine, and it's something fun to mess with. While it was so cold at the farm. It was freezing this day. Absolutely freezing. So there is that. So fuel lines caused us a little bit of an issue actually on our FS90. The fuel lines were all rock hard, which means they need to be replaced. They're old. They all need to be replaced. So we ended up doing that. We replaced them with the ones off the donor machine. We didn't have new down there, so we replaced them with the donor ones. So this is our FS90, or Dad's FS90, I should say. The one we... You know, it really doesn't get that much use, but we do use it occasionally. And it's a big boy trimmer. Basically, a guy... Short story on this thing. A guy came into where Dad works, needed some money, and, you know, basically sold it to Dad pretty cheap. So that's the only reason we even have the thing, is Dad couldn't pass up the deal that he got on this thing a few years ago. This thing actually went to northern Missouri when my brother owned some land up there. He owned, 12 acres with a 2-acre pond or something in northern Missouri. And we put one of those saw blades on it, and he used it to, like, clear brush. That's probably where it got most of its use since Dad bought it, was up there at my brother's place. He does not own that place anymore, so it came back to us when they moved back to town here. So, yeah, it's been just kind of sitting around at the farm, but it is a good trimmer. It's just heavy. It is very, very heavy. I'm a wuss and prefer a very light trimmer. If I'm going to be out trimming for hours or whatever, or even a couple minutes, I don't like the heavy trimmer. I don't particularly like using the steel trimmer because it is so heavy. And call me a wuss if you want in the comments, but hey, it's all good. It's just too heavy for me. I'm not a fan. So this is pretty much all we did this particular day. We messed around with some other stuff, like the luminaries. We disassembled the luminaries that we built in the last video. I ended up not using the luminaries this year because it was so obnoxiously windy that night. On Christmas Eve, it was so windy that I didn't even put them out. And so we just took them apart. We'll bring the candles home and store them here in the basement, so hopefully we can use them again next year and not have to buy new ones. Because if we leave them at the farm this summer, they will melt and become one candle. So, bit of a problem there. But hey, it's all good. So you got to pull the carburetor off, which there's the air box, which has a breather line. You have 2 fuel lines, actually 3 fuel lines total. So it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. Plus the throttle cable. So bit of a nightmare. And yeah, just a bit of a nightmare. But we figured it out. Like I said, this is our first time working on this, so not too bad if you really think about it, honestly. And sometimes you just need like 4 hands. And that was one of those right there. So that is the fuel line, by the way. Goes in the tank, returns the fuel back to the tank from the carburetor and stuff. Yeah, I might have broken the one a little bit. So I quit filming because I broke it and we were getting a little grumpy. So I quit filming that part. But basically, we had to run a screw down through that plastic part to get the old one out. But we made it work, you know. Just saying. We wanted to replace it anyway because these fuel lines were better on this one. But, you know, I didn't mean to break it. It just kind of happens. Sometimes, old plastic, it tends to break, you know. It's a thing. It is a thing. But it's kind of a weird design there. They have this, like, push-in thing right there with the 2 fuel lines. And you're supposed to actually pull that out to change the fuel filter. Most trimmers, you can just use a piece of wire and snake in through the filler cap and pull out the fuel filter and go at it from there. But on this particular model, you can't do that. You can, but it's a nightmare. So it's easier just to pull that out and change the fuel filter that way. So yeah, we're getting some up close action here of the handle. I don't know why, but we are. Sometimes the head mount's not the best, and this is probably one of those cases where maybe the head mount was not the best way to go at filming this. I need to get my tripod back down there, put the GoPro on the tripod. That would probably be nice for some of these project videos. So there is that. Hooking up all the fuel lines on the carburetor and the throttle cable itself. So we had a little issue there. It jumped out of its little track it was in, and we had to pull the cover back off. But all good. All good. We got the thing going, and I guess I didn't film the ignition module, but we got that back on here too, the new one. Or not the new one, the one from the donor machine, basically, we put on this trimmer as well. And hopefully we are good to go. I don't know. We didn't really run it too much. Obviously, we don't need to be using it this time of year because it's like a little cold outside, but it does run. It ran fairly well. And hey, that's pretty much this video. So I do appreciate you guys watching another On the Farm. Make sure you guys hit that like button for more. Subscribe if you have not already done so. Have a great New Year's. And as always, toodles.